Yeah, so mentoring, of course, is really just a secular term for discipleship, which we're all called to do. But it's important that it's active in our lives. So I want to set something up, though. This is a no elbow Sunday. Okay? What I mean by that is you're not here for your spouse, who should be listening to what Jason just said or whatever. Try to take this in for yourself. Some of the stuff is going to be specific to men, but 90% of what we're going to talk about is applicable to all of us, right?
It's a little bit different when you're a pastor, because I'm up here, the elbow comes after the service. At the end of the day, she's like, "Did you hear that thing you said? That was really good. You should live that." Like, yeah. You're right.
So although me and Jason still arrived on a pastoral staff here at Church on the Hill, we got here in very different ways, right? And so I told him, I said, "Hey, you know what we should do? We should each get a picture of us when we're really young and we had bad hairdos and that type of stuff, and we'll put that up to kind of just let people know what we looked like back then."
Yeah, what that was a trick, because he did not send in a picture and I did.
There it is.
Yeah. It's like, it'll be great. It'll get a good laugh, a little self-deprecation. But it's not self-deprecation if I'm the only one doing it.
So I have
he's about to spin a story about how his computer went down and he doesn't have any pictures. And he's going to want sympathy. Pray for me. I hope I get those pictures back. But the reality is he just tricked me into showing an old, not terribly funny. My wife's going to be really unhappy. She doesn't know this is happening. So when she shows up at 11 o'clock and you see 17-year-old Trisha and she sees 17-year-old Trisha, I'm going to be in trouble.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But that is me at 17, her at 17. We just started dating, and I think that's at Pietro's, and I have my hand like on the bar behind her. What you can't see is some awesome acid wash jeans. I mean, just tight as you could. You just lay on the bed and pull them on. And I was putting the moves on her. Hey, Christian girl, what are you?
That's the best he had.
What are you doing after the Bible study? I think I trimmed my mullet. It wasn't too long, but that's young us and us now are two different things.
Yeah. So my picture, which I was looking forward to sharing, believe it or not, but actually our cloud drive is broken, and I have it this week. I have it at a computer person who I'm hoping can bring back the 5 years of vacations and family photos and graduations and all that. No tears. I don't see any of you reaching for Kleenex. No. So I'll describe to you the photo. Much different than "Hey, Christian girl." So mine is, I'm about 20 years old. I've got a bright yellow code blue sweat top on. For those of you under 25, you have no idea what code blue is. But I'm at Black Angus restaurant. I've got a Long Island in my hand, and I look like I'm 12. And worse than that, I've got a permed, frosted mullet. That's right, yeah. So, next week.
So, how do you get from that to this? The truth is, young Jason, young Tim made a lot of unwise choices and a few wise choices, and more than anything, what got me into a healthier place was when I would listen to older guys, older people who'd been a little bit farther down the road. My family and my background is a little mixed. My mom grew up in this very Pentecostal holiness church. I was at church all the time, but my dad wasn't a believer. So there's kind of this weird mix in my life where I, don't go to movies, don't go swimming with the opposite sex. That would be terrible. And then I go home and my dad get me a beer out of the fridge. I'm like, I don't understand my life. But my dad, even though he wasn't a believer, man, he had so much wisdom. I mean, 100% honestly, if I would have listened to a lot more of the stuff that he said earlier, my life would be a lot different. He used to say, this is going to sound a little harsh, but this is the way Treadwells talk. He used to say, man, if I could buy you for what you're worth and sell you for what you think you're worth, I'd be a millionaire. And what he was trying to say is, you think you know everything. You think you're so smart you won't listen to anybody, but really you don't know nothing yet, kid. you're just a kid. Listen, and we can get you there. But it's going to take humbling yourself and listening first.
Yeah, and good advice came fairly often. My upbringing was quite a bit different. My parents divorced when I was 2. My mom remarried several times. I moved 21 times between second grade and my senior year in high school. And so that included Sao Paulo, Brazil, Anchorage, Alaska, Denver, Colorado, and then back to Dallas, Oregon and stuff. So my mom was a really consistent, loving, caring, nurturing person. We had a Bible in the house, but we didn't go to church, and occasionally there was bedtime prayers. And so she got sick with cancer my junior and senior year and passed away just 3 months after high school. And so I was kind of on my own and did not know the Lord. And so, yeah, my first half of my 20s was pretty selfish and pretty brutal. All the things you can imagine on how to try to figure out manhood and so on. But I can remember ignoring advice that didn't have super long-term ramifications or consequences. Like my mom and stepdad went out to dinner. They're like, okay, no roughhousing in the house while we're gone. I have a 3.5-year-old, my brother who's 3.5 years older than I. And of course, next thing you know, we're wrestling around. And for those of you who remember homes in the 70s and 80s, they had a family room and there's a one step down and you had a living room. And so we're wrestling. My brother's bigger than me. I rarely get the best of him, but I happen to get underneath him, and I'm like, yeah. But my legs are hanging off the edge of the family room. And so when I get up over the shoulders, I realize this isn't good, but it's too late. And so snap goes my ankle, but we don't have a car. None of us have cell phones. So we were there till the parents got back, and then I got casted up for what turned out to be probably the 7th time in my life. I broke a fair amount of bones and lots of stitches. And probably should have just not wrestled.
Yeah. Those are pretty low consequence kind of things, but still opportunities to listen. And what we're going to do this morning is we're going to look at a place in 1 Kings. This is kind of a standalone. It doesn't fit in the bigger picture what we've been doing lately, but Tim's working on it and is bringing a word here that I'm going to be helping with about what does it look like when you see this in Scripture. A son who has an earthly father, and some of what he has to say, very wise, some he's gone a little sideways on, but he has the opportunity to listen or not. And where he seeks counsel is going to make a huge difference, not just for himself, but for an entire nation. So we're going to open up in 1 Kings chapter 12, starting in verse 1, and we'll give you a little context after we read it.
Yeah, just one quick thing to try to help you track. So there's 2 guys, Rehoboam and Jeroboam. Rehoboam for rascal, okay? Jeroboam for jubilant. If you can kind of keep those, one's a good guy and one's not. But, okay. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had come to Shechem to make him king. And as soon as Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, heard of it, for he was still in Egypt, where he had fled from King Solomon, then Jeroboam returned from Egypt, and they sent and called him. And Jeroboam and all the assembly of Israel came and said to Rehoboam, your father made our yoke heavy. Now, therefore, lighten the hard service of your father and his heavy yoke on us, and we will serve you. He said to them, go away for 3 days, then come back to me. And the people went away.
So here's the backstory. Rehoboam is about to be king, and his father, you Bible scholars know, is Solomon. And what you know about Solomon, what you remember, right, is that he hears from God. He's the son of David. He hears from God. And he asks this question, what would you have me give you? And he asked for wisdom. God's so pleased with that. Yes, what a great thing to ask for. I'm going to give you wisdom. I'm going to give you some of this other stuff too, because you didn't ask for it. And he uses that wisdom for a fair amount of his life. But then as you come in Kings to the end of his life and you see where he starts to go, you realize he's literally going down the line in Deuteronomy and breaking every rule that is made to keep kings in check. Every single one of them. He one by one just goes through and breaks them. And his son Rehoboam has watched all this as a young man. But not only Rehoboam has watched this, there's another guy, Jeroboam, who's watched it too. Only Jeroboam hasn't watched it from the comfort of the king's house. He's watched it from the people level, from the grassroots level. And what that looks like is a king who starts to heavily tax his people. take sons into the military and conscripted service, take daughters into his house as his wives, and is starting to now even literally institute slavery and forced labor in parts of Israel. And Jeroboam steps up in rebellion, but he's not enough to stop Solomon, and he ends up in Egypt, fleeing for his life. But now he comes back because he hears Solomon's passed away, his son's going to take office, and he comes back and he has a word to say. And there's the word, we just read it. It says, your father had a heavy yoke on us.
Yeah.
Your father nearly crushed us. Are you going to be like your father? Are you going to be the same kind of king, or are you going to be different?
In that culture, Jeroboam had like a folk hero status. He was an incredibly popular guy, pretty influential amongst those people. But if we step back in Deuteronomy 17, 16 through 20, it basically lays out for every future king of Israel and current what they should not do. Okay? And for those of you guys who know Solomon's life and others, kind of listen as we go through here. Only he must not acquire many horses for himself, return to Egypt in order to acquire many horses, and he shall not acquire many wives for himself, nor shall he acquire for himself excessive silver or gold. He shall write for himself a book, a copy of the law, and this his heart may not be lifted up above his brothers, and he may not turn aside from the commandments, either to the right or to the left, so that he may continue long in his kingdom, he and his children in Israel.
So there's the opportunity, and I think in my own life I can identify plenty of times when I've been given the same opportunity. Something comes up, and I realize, left to my own devices, not listening to counsel, but just doing what I think I want to do. The truth is, I'm still not alone. I'm never left to my own devices, because there's an echo in my head of my father and his habits, and my mother and her habits. We're never completely alone. We tend to repeat our family story. We tend to fall into this pattern of behavior that sometimes we don't even recognize until we're an adult. Have you done this yet? Have you said something and you thought, that sounds just like my mother? Or maybe someone said that to you, you sound just like your mother. That's a dangerous thing to say. I will never forget the first time I felt that way. I was working a really hard manual labor job. It wasn't even a phrase. I just got up out of a chair and I went, ugh. And I thought, that sounded just like my dad. That's exactly the sound he makes when he gets up out of a chair. Maybe he really did work hard. And he wasn't just faking it. But that's what's happening here is Jeroboam is speaking across this peer gap. But he's saying, who are you going to be like? How are you going to lead? And now Rehoboam has done a couple of things here right, and he's going to do a couple of things wrong. One of the things he does is he asks for time. So 1 Kings 9 verse 6 says, but if you turn aside from following me, I'm sorry, I'm going to skip that. I apologize. That's farther up. I'm just going to skip that. We're going to go to 1 Kings 12, 6 through 15. It says, then King Rehoboam took counsel with the old men who'd stood before Solomon his father while he was yet alive, saying, how do you advise me to answer the people? And they said to him, if you'll be a servant to this people today and serve them and speak good words to them when you answer them, then they'll be your servants forever. He does something really wise here. He asks for time, and now he goes and he speaks to older guys. He says, what should I do? How should I handle this? And they give him very wise advice. He's like, listen, do this today and you'll have them for the rest of your life.
Yeah, like how many times have we done that? I know I have done it countless times where somebody gave you some good advice and it wasn't what you wanted to hear. So you go to somebody else who you know is going to tell you what you want to hear. And that's kind of what's happening here. Yeah. And
what they're trying to say is today versus forever. That's what an older guy can do for you. That's what someone, male or female, who's been a little bit farther down the road, they can say, look, you're about to make a decision based on what you want to do today. But since I've been a little bit farther down the road, can I just open up a window for you and let you see where that decision will take you in a few years? And I'm telling you, if you'll do this today instead, if you'll do the thing today that you don't want to do, then you'll get the result that you really want. But he doesn't stop there.
No.
It says, he abandoned the counsel of the old men. He gave him and took counsel with the young men who'd grown up with him and stood before him. In other words, he walks away from wise counsel and he goes to his peer group and he says to them, what do you advise me that we answer this people who have said to me, lighten the yoke that your father put on us? And the young men who'd grown up with him, they said to him, thus shall you speak to this people who said to you, your father made our yoke heavy, but lighten it for us. Here's what you say to him. My little finger's thicker than your father's thighs. My father's thighs. I love this phrase. What is this? Where does he get this? My little finger.
Solomon was a pretty big guy.
It's thicker.
Yeah.
And my father's thighs. Doesn't that almost sound like online trash talk bragging? Right? And then it's easy to talk this way amongst his friends. Like, hey, here's what you're going to tell him. You go out there and you tell him this. And now, whereas my father laid a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the third day, as the king had said, come to me again the third day. And the king answered the people harshly, forsaking the counsel the old men had given him. And he spoke to them according to the counsel of the young men, saying, my father made a heavy yoke, and I'm going to make it even heavier. My father disciplined you with whips, I'll discipline you with scorpions. So the king didn't listen to the people.
Yeah. If you think here, it was not what he wanted to hear, but it was what he needed to hear. How many times do we do that? It was where he wanted to go. He wanted to be king. He wanted to have people cherish him. He wanted to have people serve him and follow him. But their suggestion wasn't the way to get to where he wanted, and so he turned away from it. What we're going to cover here in just the next section of Kings is you'll hear that the people, Jeroboam and them, kind of had an inclination that this is the answer he'd come back with. And so they already came with a prepared statement, just in case. And in this statement, there's some really harsh language. If you took yourself back to that era, there's harsh language built in around David's kingdom and people who rebelled against him. And it is a really big mic drop moment when they deliver that.
Verse 16, when all Israel saw that the king did not listen to them, and the people answered the king, what portion do we have with David? We have no inheritance with the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. Look now to your own house, David. There's kind of a subtle little dig in there. Do you hear it? They're saying is, you're from the line of David. Apparently David doesn't care for us. David's line is no longer our line. We're going to go back to our tents. You can go back to your house. Here, we're still suffering over here, but you're living in luxury. So Israel went to their tents, but Rehoboam reigned over the people of Israel who lived in the cities of Judah. Then King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was taskmaster over the forced labor, and all Israel stoned him to death with stones. And the king Rehoboam hurried to mount his chariot to flee to Jerusalem. So Israel has been in rebellion against the house of David to this day.
So they're like, oh, you want more stones? You want to build more stuff? Boom, we'll take some stones and trash your guy and walk away. The consequences of this interaction lasts from, this is BC 930, okay, till today. We're talking 2,960 years the tribes of Israel separate till this day. And he doesn't get half and half, 10 go away, and 2 are left, and that breaks into what we call now the northern kingdom, right? And so, yeah, it's crazy.
So what's being said here? How does this fit in with mentoring and what we're talking about? Here's the thing. Doing what you want to do won't get you where you want to go. And sometimes what's really needed is a coach. Here's what I mean by that. Everybody wants abs. Nobody wants to do sit-ups.
That's me.
Right? I would love to not be embarrassed to take off my shirt, but I am. But I don't want to, I lay down on the floor to do sit-ups, and then like 1, 2, hand me a pillow. Turn on the TV. Sometimes what I need in my life is someone who's driving me. Someone who's telling me, that's not how you get those results. You got to have a coach come alongside you and push you. A good coach is a wonderful thing, right? Tom Landry has this quote that I love. He says, a coach is someone who tells you what you don't want to hear, who has you see what you don't want to see, so you can be who you've always known you could be. That's a fantastic quote. I have no idea who Tom Landry is, but I understand he's a sports guy. Is that right?
He is a sports guy, Jason, and it's difficult.
I'm almost positive it's football.
As a 49er fan for 48 years, it's difficult for me to sit up here and have us quote Tom Landry, but he was an amazing, godly guy. He coached the Cowboys for about 27 years, and many great phrases from him. But generally speaking, we generally end up where we don't want to be when we do exactly what we want to do. And that's where we need to heed advice, to seek counsel from others. And oftentimes that's not your peers, depending on what the subject matter is. Yeah. If we look back at the Old Testament, the text we were looking at, that there's life lessons built into that. And maybe you're sitting there, and what are some things, at least if you're like me, I already know there's a thing or two that I could be working on that maybe I haven't been as much as I could. And so for me, I had probably one of the laziest physical winters of my life. And, and so I can call it out of busyness and make complaints and whatever. But essentially, I have to choose to take action. And so I've done that. I've sought somebody who knows more about that stuff than me when it comes to exercise and diet, and then making those changes. And so, but maybe where is it for us that we want to be better physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, all those different things. And likely, the person who has the keys for that stuff is already in this community or in Salem Kaiser. I mean, Church in the Hill is not the only Coke in the desert, right? But likely the person who has the answers to get you to where you want to be is already very near to you. Yeah, all we have to do is reach out.
I just want to add here, for me, I found this, there was a time in my life where I knew, like, okay, I want to get here in my walk with the Lord, in the call that God has on my life. And I had to look around and say, who's doing it? Is there a model out there somewhere, someone that I see already doing it? And can I somehow attach myself to them? And what that looked like practically is I found that guy. Steve Sizemore is his name. I still keep in contact with him once in a while. He's an amazing guy. But there was a time in my life when I went to Steve and I said, Steve, what you've got in ministry, what you have in your family, what you have as a father, as a husband, like those are all things I want in my life. And practically it looked like him saying, come and work with me. It wasn't just sitting down to coffee every once in a while. It wasn't just going on walks in the woods and hearing him pontificate about the wisdom that he's got in his life. It was me serving him. Like the best way to learn from somebody is to work with them and to see the way they actually work on a regular basis. And he did that. And so I gave him, I was quite a bit younger than him. And so I had a little bit more energy, I had a little bit more time, I had a little bit more flexibility, where he was a father and a husband, and he had a position. I had all of those things. I had energy, I had a drive, and I had some flexibility. And so he said, come in and work with what I'm doing, and I'll download to you in that process everything I can. I'll give you everything I can. And man, it was the deal of a lifetime for me. Yeah. It was the deal of a lifetime. The kingdom was progressed because he knew what he was doing, but he needed some young energy. He needed some young guys, some guys that were willing to work hard. They could stay later than he could because he'd have to go home to the family. And to this day, I'm like, that was one of the most productive times in my life. And there was a time when there was a handoff that took place too, where I went, okay, now I think I can go off on my own. Not completely on my own. I'm still going to have to listen to older guys, but now I'm going to pull some younger guys around me and say, hey, come work with me. And there was another transaction that took place, and that's that kingdom growth. That's step by step.
Yeah. That's discipleship or mentoring, or however we're going to couch that, right? The thing that Jason did was he had opportunity, but he took action. Right? He placed action to it. The Bible is filled with plenty of wisdom, but it has very little value unless we apply it, right? And so I love this quote from Andy Stanley. It says, "It is our direction, not our intentions, that determines our destination." See, so it's saying it's our direction, it's our action, which way we're moving towards that determines where we end up. Not how much we talk about it, not how much we dream about it and do dream boards and that type of stuff. Those things are important maybe to help us get some direction, but in the end of the day, it's action that's going to get you to the destination. Yeah, free advice. So what I want you to be thinking about is what's one thing that you haven't done that you'd like to, and then what's one thing that you wish you would stop and haven't. And so that's where mentoring comes in. That's where another person, us being willing to hear evaluation about us, and maybe we're not as self-aware as we should be, and so on. And so what we've done in the community, what Bruce and Jason have allowed me to do with a little bit of my time, is to move into our community and to help in a form of creating this mentor organization. So the next few minutes, we're just going to describe Brothers of Valor, which is a nonprofit 501c3 in the city, which is getting lots of accolades, and we're getting lots of traction in areas within the city. But essentially, let me just give you a couple quick statistics. I think that one of the biggest problems we have in America is fatherlessness. Okay, and I know that subject's tough, but I'm holding the mirror up to me. I did not have a consistent male role model in my life, so I'm a byproduct of that. Okay, but 85% of all youth in prison come from a fatherless home. 90% of homeless runaway children are from fatherless homes. 75% of adolescent patient chemical abuse centers are from fatherless homes. And I could go on and on. This is not my data. This is census data, right? And so what some group of men in the city have done is put together this mentoring organization. And we're like, there's all these problems. There's these challenges with foster care and abuse and these other things. But when you trace most of those stories back, we realized we're the problem. That somewhere a man was leading poorly, a man had abused, a man had done wrong. And so, again, I'm not making that out of a chauvinist statement. We're just saying that this group of guys came up and was like, well, we're male, we could do this. And it turned into this nonprofit and stuff. The mission statement for that is inspiring to men to lead Christ-centered lives so that families, women, and children thrive. That's it. That's why the organization exists. So Brothers of Valor mentors 3 different ways. So we call them 3 pillars. One is one-on-one mentoring. If that's a minor, we're going to the school and meeting with them. If that's a young adult, that could be coffee shop / whatever. We're engaging in their life on a regular basis in the ways that Jason had described, right? So, and they mentor from middle school to retirement. That's the demographic. Maybe someday we'll branch into women, but we're going to stay focused on what we do best right now. So one-on-one mentoring, and then we do mentoring through music, media, and the arts. And so maybe you don't know that we have the Brothers of Valor, in partnership with Church on the Hill and others, we have a full-blown recording studio downtown where young people can come and record music. We have interns that learn how to be a sound engineer. We're engaged with the entirety of Salem Kaiser Public School, and 3 of the high schools in general are doing a lot of work. David Morris, who is on drums here a lot, he heads up that pillar for Brothers of Valor. And then we have one-on-one mentoring, we have music, media, and the arts. Why music and media? We wish that the church led the culture in America, but it doesn't. Music and media does. And so we're going to give kids, if they're going to make music, they're going to make media, it should be quality. Right? I don't mean it has to be Christianese hyper. It just means it should be done well and done clean. So that's the reason for that. Third thing is service projects. Not unlike Jason, going alongside and doing some work. We do things with the mentors and the mentees to accomplish big projects in the city, and so they learn to serve, and the mentors serve. And there's something, when you begin to give away yourself something, whether you're the person mentoring someone else, or whether you're digging a ditch, or painting a library, or fixing a garden, that's God put that in us for us to enjoy it. And so those are the 3 pillars. And so Jeremy Palke is a guy from Church on the Hill. He oversees that pillar. The director of operations for Brothers of Valor is John Watts. He's a guy from our North Campus. Now, it's not a Church on the Hill thing. There's many churches involved. Some of the partnerships we have is Salem Kaiser Public Schools, Marion County Juvenile System, Church on the Hill, People's Church, Salem Heights, Bridgeway, and on. And so there's a lot of people engaging in this thing. And it's pretty exciting. And so we just wanted a chance to highlight, if you're a guy in this community and you feel like you'd like to mentor or you need a mentor, there's going to be a sign-up sheet. If you want to get some more information about it at the information desk, please reach out to us. It doesn't happen on your own. I would have just been in prison if I'd have looked back at all the sorry things I could blame myself for. So, yeah.
When you heard Bruce stand up here at offering and read that tribute from a daughter to a father, some of you go, yeah, my dad, he was great too. You know, and it's wonderful to have a good dad. But some of you are like, nope, not my story. When God redeems us, that favorite phrase he likes to use through his son is we're born again. I don't know about you, but in my life, there's a place where I'm like, I want to be born again. I want to do this all over. There's things about my history that's redeemable. There's things about it that I'd love to leave behind me. And being born again means we're born again into a whole nother family. There's spiritual fathers, there's spiritual mothers right out here for us. We were not made to do this spiritual walk alone. You'll hear us at Church on the Hill ring the bell of community all the time. And when we say that, this is kind of the nitty-gritty of community that we're talking about. Like, what does it mean to be in a community? It means to listen to someone. And it means to look behind you and say, like, who can I pull up here with me? The word mentoring, like Tim said at the beginning, it's a great word. It's not one you find in the Bible, but you see it all over. It's like the word missions. You don't ever see the word missions in the Bible, but you see it all over the Bible. This idea is a family idea. It's a body idea, and we're all called to it. Every single person in this room is called to mentor and be a mentor. You might be doing that in a kind of a structured program like Brothers of Valor is doing, or you might have a more informal time, an opportunity to do it. But the challenge today, the call today is to do it.
Yeah. So if the worship team wants to come up, there's a video that was some of the Brothers of Valor videos. It's produced around a mentoring relationship, and I knew that when we were filming this, when I started crying, I knew it was going to end up in the end of the film. So you get to see me looking bad, so that's good. And then the worship team's going to play, and we'll enter into an opportunity to take communion together after that. So.
Growing up, I had a mom, brothers and sisters. My mom was a single mom. She had to work all the time, so we just kind of took care of each other. We didn't really know what we were doing. And then, unfortunately, life happened, and we ended up in foster care. From like end of middle school through high school, I was just kind of presenting this person that I hoped people liked. My freshman year of high school, I was actually adopted by my second cousin, my aunt. And then after graduating high school, I started going to college and again, moved out on my own, had friends, again, turned back into that I want to be Fausto that everybody likes. So that led me to some more unfortunate decisions, and that led me totally into jail. Life started to happen, and like it all just came crashing down and reality set in, and really it was like I really just need to talk about my feelings. Like I need that. So I had a friend communicate to me. They're like, hey, I heard you're going through some stuff right now, and I think maybe you should talk about it. Mentoring with Tim gave me the opportunity to just learn how to be transparent and learn how to be like, hey, life isn't all that great right now.
We just began to spend time together and share life, both him sharing to me and me sharing some of my life experience, both current and past.
Mentoring with Tim has really pushed my boundaries. It gave me a more open mind. It gave me an idea of, okay, I'm worth something for myself, and I can be effective.
And somebody starts speaking into your life, and maybe it's words and vision and ideas that you hadn't thought of, that you didn't think you were capable of. They tend to start reaching farther and higher than they would have before.
Through mentoring, my mind has been able to just open and not shy away from opportunity, and I can discern between what I like and what I don't like.
We engaged, he was just coming out of jail and he was unemployed. From that to a part-time job, to 2 part-time jobs, to nighttime maintenance, to daytime counter, to all the way up to general manager of the entire hotel. And now is with a gym organization as a regional trainer for the Northwest. It's pretty exciting to see where a relationship can take you.
I'm just so glad that I have the opportunity. I'm still mentoring with Tim now, you know. It's not an every week thing, but it's definitely, I know that he's there kind of a thing.
It's pretty overwhelming to think back at, from my life and how many mistakes I made early on, to see that people are valuing my opinion and they're applying what I'm telling them to do, and then watching those things work out. It's incredibly humbling to